frankly, they have the IQs of third graders. So I don't trust the Colts. And then the Jaguars, they are just a team. If you want to bet the under on them each and every year, you will make a lot of money over the last 30 years. Jags just disappoint. And then the Titans, they're a team that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. Who is Cam Ward? Who is Brian Callahan? How are the rest of their weapons creating themselves? But I felt like even last year, them being as bad as they were, they still were competitive. And I feel like now that if they have a good quarterback, then they should very well be in that mix for potentially that last wild card spot.
Yeah, so let's start out, and we have somewhat of a whisperer on our show, someone who can speak the Texans language. We have the Texans whisperer here. Now, did you pick the Texans last year to beat the Chargers, or did you pick the Chargers to win?
I believe I picked the Texans to win, if I'm not mistaken, because the Chargers, they're just an easy team to bet against when the going gets tough. And I knew the Texans, with their defense, with C.J. Stroud, that they would be able to make amends.
Yeah. So we'll see with the Texans this year, too. Week 1, they're on the road in LA at 3:25 Central Time, 4:25 if you're on the East Coast. We'll be writing the records down, and then we'll also post these after the fact. But do you have them starting out with a win in LA versus the Rams?
So the Rams, that's going to be a good game. If I had to predict now, I do think that this is one of the games that they fall to in week 1. Early season, their offensive line, they have some new pieces. I can see them struggling there. Rams have a good defensive line, so I do think, early prediction, I think the Rams win that game.
Okay. Sean McVay in week 1 gets the win, and then they go back home, and this is going to be, looks like one of those double-header Monday night football games. Yeah, it is, because it's on the 15th.
That nobody asks for.
7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Central, and then it's going to be 4 o'clock if you're on the West Coast. We have the Texans hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is just, actually, it's a pretty good matchup for Monday Night Football, not going to lie.
Yeah, this is a good one. I want to see how the Bucs look in week 1. I know the Texans have historically started slow over the last few years. I don't know if I can see them falling to 0-2, but a Bucs team that has experience, that has a good defensive line, and Baker Mayfield on primetime, I'm going to go with the Bucs here. I think the Texans start off 0-2, but don't worry. I think the going will be soon. We'll soon to see the light at the end of the tunnel very soon.
All right, well, we got Monday night Baker taking the win there on Monday night. And then they go on the road again. They get a free pass, actually, where they are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road.
And that is when they get their first win. And this is when they start to build rapport. They will not lose to the Jaguars because the Jaguars just frankly just won't get it done. So I like the Texans winning that game. And I feel like this is when they start to get the ball rolling a little bit.
And then they go back home to face again on Sunday at 1 o'clock. They're hosting the Titans.
And that is where I believe they go back to 500. Early struggles against some NFC teams that are accomplished, that I have their respects for. Cam Ward, it's going to be his fourth game in the pros. I think the Texans, with that defense, with Joe Mixon and the newly addition Nick Chubb, I think the Texans get the win and they move to 2-2.
All right, and then next Sunday they go to Baltimore, 1 o'clock.
Now this is a revenge game. I know the Ravens had beaten them previously in the playoffs. It was the first year, but I still think that this year there is some vengeance there. Early season, we know the Ravens tend to struggle in September as well. Now we're entering early October. I think the Texans surprise people, beat the Ravens.
All right, so they beat the Ravens here, get a little bit of momentum, and then they go on the road. Looks like they have a bye, and then they're going to London to face the Seahawks.
Yeah, so the Seahawks, I don't believe in Sam Darnold. You don't believe in Sam Darnold, but Seattle does. The Texans, whether it's Will Anderson, whether it's Danielle Hunter, or the other guys on that defense, I think choose up the Seahawks with their lack of receivers. They cover Jackson Smith and Jigba. They contain Kenneth Walker, if he's even still playing at that point. I hate to say it. They go, and they win their fourth consecutive game.
Yeah, this is Sam Darnold versus the defensive line of the Texans.
He'll be seeing ghosts, just like Kanye. Exactly.
Sam Darnold trying to go up against the Texans there. So then they go up to 4-2, and they go back home, and they play the 49ers at home at 1 o'clock.
And at this point, they have won how many games in a row? They've won 4 consecutive games. This is where I feel like there is a loss brewing. Whether it's this week or next week, I will take them to beat the 49ers. And then the following week, I believe they will fall at this
Yeah.
point. 5 wins in a row.
In the following week, so this is actually the first of a 3-game homestand for the Texans. And the following week, they play the Broncos. So I could see that being a game where you have a lot of momentum and then them falling to the Broncos there.
I think that they're going to be riding high, beating the 49ers, a team that's been perpetually one of the best teams in the league. Maybe they beat the 49ers, they're amped up, and then the Broncos come to town. Don't take the Broncos seriously enough. And the Broncos, I think, this year are going to be really good. So I think they fall to the Broncos. Also have a great defense, also have a solid quarterback, and some newly added weapons. So I think they fall to the Broncos here.
And that's all right, because we're 8 games in and they're 5-3. And then the next week, after losing to the Broncos, get to wake up and then face the Jaguars.
And I don't think the Jaguars are going to beat the Texans. I just don't see it happening. I don't have faith in this Jaguars team. Maybe you do. Maybe I don't. But I don't think they beat. I think the Jaguars fall. Texans win, and they move to 6-3.
All right. And then after that, they go on the road to Tennessee. And now these can be like divisional games. It can get a little bit weird. We're in November now, but we're 6-3.
Yeah, and I do actually think this is a game they fall to. The Texans, if there's any team in that division that gives them trouble historically, the Titans. You remember that playoff game, Josh Dobbs on the Titans a couple years back. While the Texans did pull that win out, it was also super close. I can see, especially if Cam Ward is as good as we think he might be, this is a game where people might bet on the Texans to win, but ultimately the Titans beat them. And it's a division game, so I think that ultimately they're bound to lose one of those games. So I'm going to have them losing to the Titans.
And then the following week on my birthday in Houston, they actually play the Bills. Interesting.
This will be a great game. I do think this is Thursday night after a short week, falling to the Titans. They're going to come in amped up, and I do think that they can beat the Bills. This is going to be a great game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills win this game, but I'll take the Texans to beat the Bills.
Beat them last year too, so it's not
Exactly.
crazy. And then they go on the road to face either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones.
Or whoever else is quarterback at that point. And the Colts, I'd like to think that the Colts are going to win one of these games against them. But I know that this is the first time they face them. I will pick them to beat the Colts this time around.
So we're 8-4 now after a little bit of a skid there. And then they go on the road to face the Kansas City Chiefs. A little bit of a revenge game.
Revenge game. It is Sunday Night Football. I feel like I need to give respect to the Chiefs. So I will pick the Chiefs to win this game. I think that the Texans will play well. But ultimately, we all know that the refs favor the Chiefs. It is not an opinion, it is a fact. So I will pick the Chiefs to pull out in this game, unlike me, who does not pull out. So give me the Chiefs and the Texans falling.
That's why it's broke. And then after they fall to the Chiefs on the road, they face the Cardinals at home.
And they should beat the Cardinals, ultimately. I'm not going to go deep because we all know the Cardinals are pathetic. And Cardinals fans know that. The city of Arizona, the whole state of Arizona, that is, know they're pathetic. So Cardinals, Texans win.
All right. Then they get the NFL's most improved team, according to the mainstream media. They face the Raiders at home.
And what's their record at this point?
9-5.
They're 9-5. Okay, so they're right where I expect them to be. The Raiders, is Geno Smith still going to be the quarterback at this point? What's the deal there? I'm not entirely sure. I think they should beat the Raiders at this point. These last 2 games, we'll see how it fares out. But ultimately, I like how this record is going. I think they beat the Raiders.
All right. And then after the Raiders, they face the Chargers on the road or at home for the Texans away.
And that's a game. I might actually be in attendance for this game. We don't know. But Chargers, Texans. We have 2 teams that are probably vying for a playoff spot at this point. One team that tends to get hot by the time the end of the season occurs, and one team that breaks the hearts of all of their fan. Let me take the Texans to win this game.
Yeah, because please note, this is also a TBD game. So all the games are scheduled, but the last 2 weeks of the season are still to be determined. So this could be an interesting playoff game. But I think the Texans will probably win their division, where the Chargers have no shot to do that unless Patrick Mahomes gets injured.
Yeah, I think I'll take the team that does not perpetually break the hearts of their fans.
All right, and to round out the year at 11-5, they have the Colts at home, but you're probably too far away from the 2 seed at this point or the 1 seed, and you may be locked into like the 3 or the 4 already. So do they even play their starters is really the question.
At this point, I don't think they do. Doesn't matter who wins this game. I'll pick the Colts to win this game because I feel like they usually split with one of these teams. I picked them to lose to the Titans earlier, so I'll pick the Colts to win this. They end up being 11-6.
The game that got Danny Dimes paid. You heard it here first. Daniel Jones comes in, lights it up on the last week of the league. Please give me a contract. I deserve it.
And I think looking at the schedule, like 11-5, 11-6, 12-5, that's right around that wheelhouse. Maybe they beat the Bucks on Monday night, second week of the season. Maybe they don't lose to the Texans at all, or maybe they don't lose to this Colts team in week 18. But either way, I think 11-6, 12-5, it's totally fair for them.
I feel like 11-6 is spot on, especially for the Texans. Like, they were 9-8 last year. This is 2 games better than they have been the previous few seasons. So this would be in week 1.